Good morning, everybody. I'm going to talk about insurance and risk. And for my part of the session, I'm going to call you all the same things. So whether you're a co-op, condo high-rise, condo low-rise, townhomes, homeowners association, whatever, you're all going to be condos. So don't take offense, you're just condos. So what we're going to talk about is risk control and insurance. And basically most of you have at least 4 areas of concern. You have a concern for the property that you may or may not have. If you're a homeowners association, you may have no property other than maybe a sign that introduces to who you are. But for most of us, we have buildings, we have rec centers, we have property that we have to be concerned about. We also have a liability issue, and everyone has a liability issue. You all have common and limited common areas. And in these areas, stuff can happen and claims result. So everybody has liability issues. We all collect funds for our associations to run. We have an issue of sometimes of funds being missing or lost. We also have the issue of loss of income. Now, not all of us have anything we can rent out, but there are associations that do have rec centers or do have tennis courts or things that they actually rent out and make money on. So they have another exposure there, because if something should happen to that, they were counting on that income, or they have an antenna on top of their roof, they're counting on that income to help with their maintenance fees. So you have an exposure there, some of you do, and we need to worry about that when it comes to insurance. So who insures what? Or before I go into that, risk control techniques. Let me talk about the different ways that you can protect your property. With property, the easiest way is to buy insurance, because nobody wants to self-insure a $20 million building. So you normally would buy insurance. You have that exposure, you pass it off to the insurance. Your liability losses are the same way. You have no desire to be responsible for a $500,000 claim that you would have to assess all owners for if you don't have insurance. So we always pass off the liability issues to insurance. We have the risk control guy come out and inspect. We make sure we don't have holes in our grounds where someone could hurt and break a leg. We make sure we have the signs up at the pool. We have loss control from the insurance company to come out, check our grounds, make sure we're doing what we should be doing, that there's no hidden risks, that we've got it to the best of our ability to be covered and protected. With misappropriation of funds, you do have property management firms, you have co-signing of checks, you have all kinds of ways to protect your funds. But 514B and A require that the association carry a bond for up to $500 per unit, so up to a maximum of $200,000. So basically, that's not a lot of money, because some of us have much more in our reserves, but it's a help. And of course, you can always buy more. And of course, your property management firms have coverage on your funds as well. Loss of income, again, if you're renting something out or you're making income, sometimes the contract will state that regardless, if it's like an antenna, regardless of whether it's operating or not, or the hurricane blew it off, they still continue to pay you maintenance fees, rental fees, or whatever the case may be. So you can sometimes do that by contract. Worst comes to worst, lay it off on insurance. That's what it's there for. So let's talk about insurance. Okay, insurance is a contract. Okay, it is. It's a contract between you and the insurance company. For the price you're paying, we're offering you so many services, we're offering you so many exposures, we're going to cover your perils, we're going to cover this is what we're insuring you for. It's enforceable by law, so if something does go wrong and the insurance company doesn't do right, or you don't pay your premium and you felt we should still insure you, we can always figure that out in court. The basic policy names the AOAO, the association, as the named insured. Not the owners, not the board. The basic property and liability policy names the association. The association owns the building. The association owns the common areas. Okay? We all make up the association as members, but we're naming the association as the named insured. The policy lists the coverages and it lists exclusions. And nobody's going to read through, other than insurance agents and every now and then your lawyers, 150 pages of a property policy or a liability policy. But when you need to find out if there's coverage there or not, you're going to ask the appropriate person to help you with that. A summary of insurance, and there is one in your packet, and you kind of need to look at that when we're going to be talking about insurance for condos, because we're going to talk about what the condo has to insure and then what you as individual unit owners have to insure, because they're not the same. And if you only rely on the condo insurance, you're not going to have enough if something happens to your unit. So basically, the master policy covers the building as originally built. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of our buildings were built in the 70s. It came with, how can I say it, not quite Koenig appliances, cabinets, but it came with pressboard appliance cabinets. It came with Formica, maybe, as our countertops. It came with linoleum in our kitchen. And we got carpet. Sometimes it was that orange long shag. Sometimes it was just green, because that was quite a popular color to match our green appliances. So basically, think back to what your unit probably looked like back when it was first built. We insure, per your bylaws, as originally built. And there are some condos that came with no cabinets, because everybody could choose their own, or no flooring. Everybody got to choose their own flooring. They paid for it on their own. So we don't even cover that. But the typical condo came with cabinets, tubs, toilet sinks, walls, floors, ceiling, electrical plumbing, the light fixtures. All of that is under the master policy as originally built, subject to the deductibles that the association has. So when there is a claim, and how many of you have had a water claim? Been involved in one? Aren't they horrible? Anybody had a fire? Oh boy, there's a couple fires. So you know claims happen. And water claims are horrendous, and our agency normally gets 5 to 7 a day, 5 days a week. That's a lot of water claims, because a lot of pipes and appliances are leaking, and it's always the top floor, okay? The biggest water claim to date is a building where the top floor leaked down, all the way down, and it's anticipated that the extraction bill alone is $1.3 million. Never mind the repair now of all these units, just the extraction bills in the neighborhood of $1.3 million. I was talking to the extraction people the other day. I thought, that's the biggest I've ever heard. All right, so the master policy has certain perils we insure. We insure fire, lightning, windstorm, vehicle damage. A car loses control and plows through the lobby. That's under the master policy. Hopefully the car insurance will pay us back, but sometimes they don't have enough insurance. Hail, now we used to never have a problem with hail in Hawaii, though we did a couple of years ago, and it's amazing the number of townhomes that had hail damage. Collapse, water overflow, sudden and accidental from a domestic plumbing system. That is the worst one. Those are all the leaks we're having, whether they're common element pipes that are leaking, whether they're your appliances that are leaking, whether you're leaving the tub on because you were yakking on the phone and forgot you were filling it up. We have a lot of water claims, and that is the worst type because they're preventable. 99% of them are preventable if we would maintain our appliances, if we would not leave the water running, if we would read the notice in the elevator that said the water is going to be turned off from 8 to 4 that day, and at 9 o'clock we turned our water on and it didn't, oh, I forgot it, and we forgot to turn it off, and we just left it on and went to work. I can't tell you how often that happens when there's a water turn-off in a building. Somebody turns their handle on, forgets about it because no water came out, then, oh yeah, and just goes and forgets to turn it off. So they're preventable, most of them. Master policy covers the common and limited common areas, okay, and the unit as originally built. So let's say you're the poor soul that has this water claim, and let's say it came from your unit, and you got to call at the office, and you have to go home because there's 2 inches of water in your unit and down 3 floors, okay? The master policy is going to hire the extractor, going to pay the extractor to come in and extract and dry out all the walls and everything that's part of the as originally built. And let's say there's cabinet damage. But let's say your unit had a beautiful upgraded wood floor instead of the shag that it came with in 1970. We're going to give you money for carpet, not for that wood floor. We cover as originally built per your bylaws. There is no way we can give you what your improvements are. Think about it, we have no way of knowing what any unit owner is doing inside, and we would have to inspect constantly every unit if we had to ensure what was the improvement. So that's your responsibility as owners. The problem is, when many of you, if you bought your unit back in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, the mortgage company could have given a hoot about whether you had an HO6. An HO6 is a homeowner's Form 6. It's designed for condo unit owners. In the old days, the mortgage companies didn't care. All they cared about was the master policy. They knew if there was a claim, they'd get back their investment because it's going to be insured. They didn't care about your contents. They didn't care about your improvements. They didn't care about your loss of use. What has happened in the last 5 to 7 years is the mortgage companies are now realizing it is important to make sure owners have the complementary policy to the master called the HO6. So mortgage companies today do say, and where's proof of your insurance? So sometimes when you go to close a loan, or if you're trying to sell or refinance, you have to show proof of your HO6. So if you don't have one, you should buy one, and you should make sure everybody in your complex has one. Because when there is a claim, relying on just the master policy, you're going to be short. Remember, we cover as originally built. So you have to move out of your unit for 5 days while it dries, because it's a sauna in there when they're drying it. Who's going to pay for that? Not the master policy. Who's going to pay the fact that your electric bill, if you're individually have electricity, went up 4 times? Not the master policy. Your HO6 is. Who's going to care about the damage to your contents? Not the master policy. It's your HO6. I'm the unit below. Well, it's the guy up above. It's his fault. No, it's not his fault. You have to insure your own stuff. If you don't insure your risk, you're out. It's coming out of your pocket. You can try to say, oh, unit owner up above, your appliance broke, your washing machine hose broke, your ice maker leaked, and it leaked for 10 hours and it ruined my unit below you. The courts are going to say, unit owner didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident. Unit owner below, why don't you have insurance to protect your asset? Your biggest asset for most of us is what we live in or what we own. It is the property. So by not spending money on an HO6, which many owners have no concept that they need this policy, even though I yak about it all the time, and it's relatively inexpensive, a couple $100 a year, sometimes even less. It is so important that everybody has both policies so that you can get back to square one. At the end of the day, after the claim is all done, and it takes weeks, don't expect it back in 2 to 3 weeks or have it all accomplished. It takes weeks by the time you call the contractor in to fix up the holes he made, to repaint, get the new flooring that you've got to order from Home Depot or whatever the case may be. It is a long process. And during that time, you could be out 2 to 3 weeks of your unit. And who wants to pay the mortgage, pay the maintenance fees, and now have to go rent something? Wouldn't it be nice to call your HO6 carrier and say, hey, Allstate, State Farm, or whoever you're insured with, I can't be in my unit for 2 weeks. Where do you want me to go? And know that they're going to cover that for you. So it's an important little policy that all owners need to have. So if you take a look at the summary of insurance, which is in your packet, this is a typical Waikiki condo. It's a huge condo. It's done back in 2008, but it still applies today. You will see that they're insured for 140 back then. They're insured for 150 million roughly. You will see that they carry a $5,000 deductible. So this water claim that caused on the 20th floor, it went down 3 floors, has a $5,000 deductible. Today, that $5,000 deductible will be charged back to the 20th floor unit owner because this condo's in 514B and did opt into the insurance section. So besides having to lose the use of your unit, have your unit a mess, holes in the wall, you now have to also pay the deductible. But if you have that HO6, you're going to turn the assessment letter over to your HO6 carrier, who's going to pay for it, along with putting you up elsewhere, along with your electric bill, along with the damage to your contents and your improvements. So for $200, it's a great little buy. So the deductible can be charged back to the unit owner or to the unit that caused the claim. So if you have a tenant who causes a claim, sets the unit on fire while cooking, you as the unit owner will be charged back the deductible. Okay? Even if it's a common element pipe that backs up or breaks, you could be charged that deductible. There's 3 things the association, the board, can do with the deductible. They can pay for it out of everybody's maintenance fees. They can charge it to the unit that caused the claim, the washing machine hose, ice maker, the person who set the place on fire, or they can divide it amongst the unit owners involved in the claim. So if we have a $5,000 deductible and we have 5 units, because it's early and I don't want it to divide too badly, we can say, gee, we don't know why that common element pipe backed up. Plumber found nothing in there, or he found a diaper, but there's 3 kids, 3 babies above, so we don't know which owner it is. So we're going to divide that $5,000 amongst your 5 owners. You're all going to suffer $1,000 of the association's deductible. You're all going to get a letter that says, we're assessing you $1,000 of this claim. That assessment letter can be turned over to your HO6 carrier, who will then help you with that. If you don't have the HO6, it's your loss, even though it was a common element pipe. Because that common element pipe is owned by all of us who own the condo. And we don't know why it backed up, or we know why it backed up because there was a diaper there, but we don't know which kid threw his diaper down the toilet and created the claim. So it gets assessed to all who receive proceeds from the claim. So keep that in mind. This HO6 policy, which I stress and stress and stress, is very important for owners. The board will get the right amount of coverage that they need. They're going to deal with a professional who's going to say, this is what your building appraised for, replacement cost. This is what your bylaws say you have to insure. Okay, they're going to get taken care of. But we have to worry about you as owners because you need to make sure you're buying an HO6. Just like the summary here for this Waikiki condo, the HO6 comes with property coverage, if your property, your contents, your upgrades. It comes with liability. So if you're out golfing, you hit somebody with a golf ball, or you're walking your dog on property and he bites somebody, that's your HO6. You don't have that policy, that's your loss when you get sued. That's out of your pocket. Okay? The association, all associations buy an umbrella policy. And an umbrella policy, some of us as individual unit owners have an umbrella policy. It covers above our cars and our property, just in case something goes wrong. Okay? So the same thing for the association. They buy an umbrella policy, and if you think of the handle of an umbrella, that's your general liability, that's your directors and officers, that's your workers' comp if you have employees. Once these limits are used up in a claim, the umbrella part, the part that protects you from the rain, pays an additional millions. For this association, it's $25 million. It's a large condo. So they're protecting everyone's assets by buying this umbrella. Okay? You as owners sometimes may need an umbrella. Maybe you just can't rely on the $300,000 that's on your homeowner's policy because your unit's worth more. And as we get older, our units seem to get worth more and more because of the inflation. And when you think what you paid for it and what you could sell it for, is $300,000 enough? That's a determination you have to decide. Okay, so just like every condo, and some of you may run for the board someday, or some of you are on it, every condo covers directors and officers' liability. Okay? This D&O coverage protects them in case something goes wrong. They're serving for free. We make mistakes. Sometimes we don't make mistakes, but we still get sued because somebody thinks we made a mistake. Okay? But this protects not only the board, it protects the association. Because if they don't buy directors and officers coverage, that means, and there's a claim, it's coming out of your maintenance fees. So you always want to make sure your directors and officers have insurance because they're humans and they do make mistakes. If you're in a flood zone, you're going to have to carry flood insurance. If the association, if you live in an association that is in a flood zone, you don't have to carry flood insurance unless you want to cover it for your contents. So when you get that letter from your mortgage company, you just have to turn it over to the association and they'll show that the condo has purchased flood insurance, but you have the option of buying it for your contents if you want. But the association buys it for the building. Okay? Association, we talked about the bond before, how they all have it, and how they need it to protect your association. So this is a typical insurance summary. No matter who your insurance agent is, you usually get this once a year when your annual meeting packet goes out. And you should look at this and say, gee, what is the association's deductible? Because that you have to insure. So if you look under property, you will see on this one, their deductible was $5,000. Sometimes you'll see $10,000. There's a condo with $25,000, and I got one with $50,000. That means the first $50,000 of any claim is on the back of you as the unit owner. So it's very important that you look at this to determine what is the association's deductible. And do I now call my insurance agent and say, whoops, the association's deductible from last year went from $5,000 to $25,000. Hey, insurance agent, give me more insurance. Because if I cause the claim, I don't want my insurance to say, gee, Sue, you got a letter for $25,000, but you only got $5,000 worth of coverage. Guess you cough up the other $20,000 by yourself. We don't want that to happen to you. So you always should check once a year when you get this, what the deductible has changed to. And then you have to call your agent. When you make improvements in your unit, you gutted it, you spent $50,000, who's going to insure that beautiful new kitchen or bathroom that you just did? Not the master policy. We cover as originally built. Every owner needs to take responsibility for what you do in your unit. Okay? So the HO6 covers your personal property, your improvements to the structure, your loss of use, or your loss of rental income. If you're a landlord and you rent out your unit, you can still buy an HO6. Instead of loss of use, you're going to lose rental income. The insurance company will pay you that rental income because you had a water loss and you have to move your tenant out. Or you had a fire and it's not going to be ready for 6 months and you don't want to lose that $3,000 a month. You can insure it, okay? Covers the association's deductible, and believe me, as deductibles are going up, that is even more important sometimes than our stuff that it covers. Because we all say we got more junk than we need. We could live with a lot less, but nobody wants to be assessed a $25,000 deductible or a $50,000 deductible. That's a chunk of change that you do owe the association. And of course, the HO6 covers your personal liability. So in conclusion, board members do owe a duty of ordinary care to their owners. They need to make sure they get the right insurance. They need to make sure they follow what their bylaws say about what they have to cover, okay? They have an obligation to act as reasonable, prudent people in reducing the association's exposure to risk of loss. They can't say, oh, we don't need an umbrella. We don't want to spend that extra $2,000. We got to save money this year because we have to do this pipe. And, oh, God, our owners are already upset. No. You've got 50 owners. You have 50 people's assets there. If something goes wrong and there is a settlement of 3.8 or 2.1 or 1.9 against an association and you only have $1 million worth of coverage, who's paying the rest of that? All your owners. And many of your owners carry an umbrella policy, a personal one, so the condo needs to carry one as well. So the association's job, the board's job, is to make sure they reduce the risk to you as owners for the things that the association owns. Board members can reduce the association's exposure to risk by controlling the likelihood and extent of losses and by purchasing insurance. We have a lot of loss control recs that go unanswered. We have right now a condo that I recently picked up. Insurance company, no one said anything to me. Insurance company goes out and sends loss control and says, Sue, do you know that the attorney sent a letter out to every owner and said, don't go on your lanai because the railings are falling? We just picked this account up. Insurance company said, we want off. Now, no insurance company wants to insure anybody whose railings are falling off and the chance of somebody going out. I said, hold on, give me 30 days. Property management firm worked with me. We got a construction crew out there. And just like at Ala Moana Shopping Center, if you've been there recently, there's nothing but wood covering every railing. So is this condo. They've got wood on every railing, blocking it 2 feet in front of the railing so you can't possibly even get to the railing because there's this ugly piece of wood on everybody's lanai. So when the railing falls off, you're not leaning against it. Now, they are going to have it corrected. They are working on that, but that takes time, building permits, getting bids. It's going to eventually go back to very nice railings. But you have to take care of your property. And when it's a life safety issue, like what happened at Ala Moana Shopping Center and the railings, or those of you who say, well, we're not going to deal with spalling, and then the spalling falls and hits somebody, or we have windows where they're low windows because it's an old project, and there's no air conditioning, so they leave it open, and a child decided mother was on another floor, child somehow got in the elevator, kids, and went down a floor or two, and he climbed up on a table near the railing and fell out. Okay? Now we have windows that need to be repaired. These are life safety issues that the insurance companies go ballistic on when you don't maintain or when you decide we're not going to do this. So please always, and I've been at a board just recently where they said, but that's what we have insurance for, Sue. Why do we care if the spalling falls off or the railings fall off? That's what insurance is about. Well, it may be to cover the first time, but then after that, your insurance costs are going to be horrendous. So don't get upset when your reserves or your maintenance fees have to go increased, because we need to make sure that you are adequately covered. We need to make sure that you can buy insurance, because none of us want this exposure on our back. We would all sell our condos tomorrow if we couldn't insure them, because nobody wants that exposure. I stress to you, do not kick the can down the road when it comes to maintenance issues. We are now having more and more claims against boards who are doing that. So you as unit owners should be demanding that your maintenance fees be increased so you have the money to cover your railings and to cover your spalling. And I know for you who are board of members, it's not pleasant to say you're going to increase your maintenance fees. But I did it at my condo with a 40% increase one year. Because when we looked at everything, just the numbers, and we divided it out, we said, we don't have enough money. And the board had to admit we did not. And did we hear screaming and yelling? But 3 years later, when the chiller broke, and we had to pay $350,000 to fix it, and we had the money, because we had increased our fees, everybody said, okay, we forgive you. Of course, they made me the board president, and I've been the board president since. So that's my spiel for you. Thank you.
Okay.